every time they come in, they're like, "Are we pregnant today?" And it's like, we'll
Wow.
see, like, you're working alongside them and you get like that emotional attachment. And it's a really great experience.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Jericho. Today, I'm super excited to be here with Briana. She is a first year student at the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine in Florida. She is going to share her experience as a non-traditional student and other tips that she has for pre-med. So super excited to talk about that. Thank you, Briana, for coming on the show.
No, yeah, thank you guys for allowing me to come and talk. I think it's really cool that you guys have this podcast.
One of the first questions I like to start off with like these conversations is, why did you decide to pursue medicine in the first place?
Okay, yeah. So I know it sounds super cliche, but I have always wanted to be a doctor. I think I was talking to my mom the other day about it. I think at 8, I had said I wanted to be a doctor. Everyone else was picking like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be like police officer. And my answer was doctor. And that answer kind of never changed. And um, I kind of grew up, I had a lot of like times in my life where I didn't have health insurance and I had a lot of medical problems. So I kind of saw the other side of like healthcare and how like I had to navigate the system. And as I became an adult and still not having healthcare, like insurance, it was like just a really eye opener to see how a lot of Americans are dealing with this and how hard it is like to stay on top of your health and have to decide like, can I afford to go to the doctor even though I know it's like really important. It's just it had always been something that kind of made me want to help the system from within side, and be on someone's team to help them, because I had some physicians who really helped me even though I couldn't pay for the medicine that they told me I needed to have. They were like, okay, we'll do this. We're going to see if this works. We're going to try to find an alternative path to help you. So like that kind of opened my eyes to wanting to do that for others.
Okay, cool. So I did want to transition to like your pre-med journey. You, I think, took 2 gap years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just wanted to know when did you first realize you were going to have to take gap years, and then once you were taking them, kind of what was your experience with it?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think so. It was really hard for me to know that I was supposed to take like the MCAT, my senior year of
Yeah.
college. And I had no idea that that was like the timeline. Like I didn't know anything. Like I knew I was going to med school, but I didn't really know how that whole journey was really going to be. So I was winding down, my collegiate years, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I need to start doing what? I need to be able to pay thousands of dollars for this application, and I have no money. So it kind of like hit me like, you have to get a job, I guess, until you can be able to afford this. And then you now need to, you know, take like a Kaplan course to make sure you're solid in the stuff that's going to be tested on the MCAT. So it was kind of like, let me conquer and try to just graduate college, because at that point I was sitting at around a 3.2. So I was like, everyone kept saying like you're already on the lower end, and it was really discouraging and hard for me to understand that maybe that the likelihood of me getting in with a 3.2 was really low, but I knew I wanted to do it and I was going to find a way. So I knew gap year was my only option to make sure I was solid in the information, to be able to afford the process, because it's super expensive. I think that's not talked about at all, really, how expensive it is to apply. And it ended up being about 2.5 years of me taking a gap year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the kinds of things that you're doing in your gap year? There's a lot of different options out there for people who are going to take gap year. So what was your experience with it?
So for me, I knew I needed to retake a few courses. So first, like I said, I needed a job. So I just started applying to a lot of like medical positions that were like entry level, even like starting from like a receptionist at a doctor's office, or like I like applied a big net of stuff just to get that clinical experience. And I was fortunate to be able to work as a medical assistant at a doctor's office. So in and the doctor, he allowed me to work part-time so that I could go on campus to retake classes. So I needed to retake 3 classes, because I didn't do well in them. So I needed to retake. So I did like a DIY post back, in a sense, to retake those classes. At that point in time, they had the grade replacement. So a lot of like the DO schools were replacing your grade if you got a higher grade, and they would recalculate your GPA. They did away with that now, but that was what was going on then. So that was my thought process. Like, let me get erase these C's, let me get an A, you know. Um, and so I did that, and kind of just took that on my own at my own pace. And then after they had changed that ruling, it was like, wait, okay, I my GPA didn't really go up that much. Now I need to really think, what should I do? So then I looked into master programs and post-bac programs, and I just started compiling a list of, options that I needed to do to get into med school. And so I just started like Googling all the programs that they offered, and kind of weighing out my options. Like, all right, you worked for a year. Now it's time. Let's like start thinking about getting into one of these actual official programs. So that's kind of what I did during those years.
Okay. So as you're doing, this entire process, taking the 2 gap years and stuff, what advice do you have out there for people who are maybe in the same shoes, or, maybe they didn't realize that they had to take the MCAT, until, very later on in their college career? Because a lot of people may be in the same kind of shoes. And, what kinds of things should people keep in mind?
Yeah, I think definitely like they reach out for help, like trying to find like YouTubers, like Instagram people that have been in these similar situations, and reach out for advice. I wish like there was more people that I would have been able to talk to about it. Because you think everyone, you think you think you're in this alone. You're not. There's so many people who don't know that they need to take their MCAT. I mean, until it's super late, and they, you always hear, oh yeah, I went straight into med school after undergrad. That's not the case for a lot of people. So definitely don't feel like you're in it alone, and ask for help, and talk to your advisors. Um, yeah, that's what I would say. Like, really don't be scared to feel like you have to navigate this journey by yourself, because it can get lonely and hard and scary, and it makes you feel like this isn't for me. And it could be, it is for you if this is what you're passionate about. Don't give up easily.
Okay. How do you think your experience as a non-traditional student is different from those who maybe took a more quote unquote traditional route to med school, who went straight into med school? Has it changed your perspective on, the application, or just the entire med school training process as a whole?
Yeah, I think because I'm a older med student, I have that clinical experience working in a doctor's office. I'm in how our program is. It's a PBL style. So we give cases and we talk about it as a group and dissect the case. I can give what actually happened in a clinic, versus them. They don't really have that experience. They have a different insight on things. So having like real life examples and really knowing who I am makes a huge difference, I think.
Okay. Do you think gap years have been beneficial for you? Have you had any other regrets or anything like that? If it has benefited you, how so?
Yeah. To me, I mean, I don't regret my journey. It's my journey. And that was one thing I had to like get over and think of, like, having any regrets. Like, you can't have regrets. You know what I'm saying? Everything has to be a learning experience. So I'm super glad that I had a gap year. I think, it has so long been frowned upon to take gap years as if it's like such a bad thing. It's not. It's truly, I found who I am as a person. I found that this is my passion, and that I was going to be a doctor, in that time frame. Even though in college I knew I wanted to be a doctor, it was reaffirmed during those gap years, and I had clinical examples of where I had, like, that passion just kept growing and that fire just kept growing. And when you get to med school, you really have to love medicine. It can't be for like superficial reasons. It's hard to have these, like, the hours that we put in. You it has to be, you really want to be here.
Okay. So yeah, now I want to go a little bit into some of your experiences during the gap year again. So you decided to work as a medical assistant.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like, and how has it helped you in your applications or just like general experience as in the healthcare setting?
Yeah. So, for me, the experience was amazing. It was eye opening. Um, and the physician that I got to work with, he was like super, like, amazing at teaching. He knew I wanted to go into medicine. So he would like point things out, and he would really let me, like, go all in and really like showcase, like, this is what this is. Let's go research this. Like, I want you to like look this up. And we opened up the textbook and was like, you see, this is what we saw in the thing. This is what it says in the book. Look over this. So it's kind of like putting things together, for me. Um, and yeah, getting to see patients, and like, it just was a really, it's different than volunteering. Like, you volunteer through college, at the hospital. It's a great experience, but actually working alongside patients and feeling like you're on their team, like actually on their team, makes a huge difference in it. It's a really big eye opener.
Okay. Would you say that was one of like the pivotal experiences where you realized, hey, this is actually what I really want to do?
Yeah.
What are some cases in which you've realized that?
Yeah. So it was one of those things. And so, again, like I said, when I was 8, I said I wanted to be work as an OB.
Mhm.
And even now to this day, so I was a medical assistant at an OB clinic, and I got to see these cases, and I got to work alongside patients from the beginning of their pregnancy, or not even the beginning. It was, they're trying to conceive and they're going through all these issues. And it's like, every time they come in, they're like, are we pregnant today? And it's like, we'll
Wow.
see. Like, you're working alongside them, and you get like that emotional attachment. And then they are pregnant, and then now you're going the 9 months with them. And it's a really great experience, to feel like you're on the team. You come in, you get to know these people, like, and like, not feeling rushed. Like, sometimes you go to the doctor and you feel rushed, that you can't get to know and have that experience with them. But seeing that it can happen, you can get to know these patients, and they're not just another number coming in.
Right.
So yeah, that
Okay.
was a really great experience for me.
Okay. So you also took a special master's program as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Well, how was your experience with that? Why did you choose to take a special master's program over, let's say, other post-bac programs that are out there?
Yeah. So, I like I said, my GPA was on the lower side. I had a 3.2. And everyone I talked to, they were like, "Oh wow, you're never gonna get in, or you should go and just be a nurse." No, not that that's a bad profession, but they made it seem like I just wasn't able to do it. And I knew in my hearts of heart that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be, have that autonomy and be able to make the decisions for my patients and be on that team to help my patients. And when I realized that my GPA wasn't going to keep getting higher, even if I took more classes on my own, I needed something that was going to have a linkage. That if I have this one last shot to prove to a school that they should pick me, that I had to go all in. And so a lot of the special master programs, like they have it to where if you get a certain GPA and have a certain MCAT, then you're able to, they'll offer you a seat. Some of them just offer you an interview, but it's, at least for my school, it's more of a formality. As long as you don't mess up anything, or do anything crazy in your interview, they pretty much have it to where you can go in. And there's some that, you have to be the top like 5 people in the class out of 80. That's where like doing your research on the program itself like really mattered, because I didn't want to spend 40,000 on a program and have to make the top 5 people, even though I like killed it in my class. I wasn't one of 5 and I don't get a seat. And so I looked into my program and they had it to where it's like, as long as you get a 3.2 and have at least a 40 percentile on your MCAT, then you would be offered a seat.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I also have this other question. I heard SMPs, some of them are pretty similar to what the med school curriculum is like.
Yes.
Now that you're in med school right now, how would you say it compares? Would you say, it's just as hard? And how is the transition going into the SMP program from like undergrad?
So yeah, I can speak on ours. It is almost identical. So for us, the hours, I should have looked at the syllabus before of how many hours. I think we take 34 credit hours a semester, something like that. Last year we took 18 credit hours. That was for the special masters. So in undergrad, you take 15 credit hours. Most, 18 is kind of pushing it. At least that's how it was for me. I felt like 18 was a lot for me. So it's a gradual progression of how much you're learning, as far as like the class load. But for my program specifically, they follow the same, like our anatomy was the exact same. Our biochemistry, everything, they had the same PowerPoints. They really were pretty similar for as far as like the test questions. They might not have been as difficult, but the same material was taught. So it's like another pass through before you get into med school. So this year for me, I felt super prepared versus someone who came straight from undergrad. You never got that transition to where I've already seen all the material. I know what books they're coming from. I know now how to actually study. In undergrad, you kind of wait until the last minute to start actually studying. That doesn't work in med school. Like, you have to start studying right after that lecture. Now you need to spend at least 6 hours on that material on that day. And it's like, there's no lagging. We test every, like last year, we test every 2 weeks. Here in med school, like we're testing very, very frequently. So for me, the progression is what I needed. I couldn't imagine jumping straight from undergrad into med school. So I was really glad to have that special master's program.
Okay. Some of the hardest moments you would say in your pre-med journey, maybe if it was in college or like during the 2 gap years that you took, what are some of the hardest moments?
Yeah. So I think maybe the first one was probably when I got my first C in undergrad.
Yeah.
That was like oh my gosh. And everyone was like, you're never getting in. Every time I looked online in any of the forums, it's like, yeah, if you get a C, you can kiss that goodbye. Once I dropped below a 3.5, everyone was like, yeah, you're never getting in. And like when you look on SDN or right,
yeah,
like
SDN.
You start seeing everyone, and they're like, yeah, you'll never get in, and you go down that rabbit hole of reading everyone's response as if they're the med school gods, and they're telling you like yes, like this is you have to do this or you're never getting
Yeah.
in. Um, that was my first moment where I was like, oh man.
Mm.
And I'm glad I didn't listen to them because here I am as a first year now, you know? And I think my second time that I was like kind of um, really like was a hard moment was I applied to I think 4 different.
Yeah, you said you were applying to 3 master's programs or something. Could you?
Yeah, sorry. So I had applied to 4, and so when I got my first 2 letters, they were rejection letters. And so I was like, "Man, these med school these, like, master programs don't even want me," like, "Oh my gosh, like, what do I do if I don't get anywhere for a master's?" Um, and so I was, like, really, like, scared, like, this is supposed to be my last chance, like, "Oh my gosh." And then finally my last 2 letters I got accepted into 2 masters. So my school and what was the last one? Drexel. So I had applied to these 2 and they had accepted me. And so I was like, okay, this is my last chance. I got 2. I only needed 1 acceptance to a master's program. Now I have to go all in.
Right.
So
Okay. So I guess to end things off a little bit, what advice would you have for students who may be in the same shoes? What do you wish you kind of knew before going to med school? You know, if you were to go back in time or something like that and tell yourself a few things about this entire journey that you've had, what would you tell yourself?
I think I would say, like, again, you're not in this alone. There's so many people. Like, this journey is hard. Um, and just you don't have to go in it alone. Ask for help. Form these like connections with people who are willing to reach out. And be willing to talk to like any like med student that comes in and ask like see where they failed at and ask if they'll be willing to share it, um, and see how you can do things differently to be more successful. um, and again, like, yeah, just don't feel like you're in this alone, because I felt so alone in this journey and I was like, oh my gosh, if I just had help. um, and it's a two-way street. I could have done a better job at reaching out and making sure like I was like trying to get those connections and understand the whole timeline and process of it, um, because I was so late on taking the MCAT and all these other things, um, so yeah, that's what I would recommend. Just reach out, feel like, ask people on IG, like if you see that they're in med school, DM them. All they can do is not respond, or
Right.
they will be willing to help though.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Briana, for coming on the show. I'm sure everyone had a lot of fun hearing what you had to say. But yeah, that's it for us now. Bye.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
Bye guys.
All right.